Hey, what's up guys? Chief Pat here, and today bringing you guys a brand new Clash Royale video. And inside of this video, I'm going to be showing you guys an insane win streak I went on while I was up inside of the #1 spot. Now, if you take a look at player number 2 and 4, they're conspicuously outside of their clans. I'll leave that to your imagination, but take a look at my activity log where you can see I've won an insane amount of battles in a row. So I won 9 straight battles before I had a draw, and then I won 9 straight battles after that for 18 straight wins on this account, going off against fully maxed out level 13s. 18 straight wins against people who are similarly maxed out, I feel like is pretty insane. And yeah, been having a lot of fun with this deck. I've been dominating with it, and if you play it right, I really feel like you can beat most of the meta decks right now. There's a couple of decks that use the mini P.E.K.K.A, which of course is really good against the Royal Giant and is super annoying to deal with, as well as some people are using the Miner, which is actually pretty good to me. I know a lot of people don't talk about the Miner a lot, but personally, I think it's the best out of any of the new legendaries. But yeah, it's worked out really well. Let's go ahead and hop into a couple of battles, starting off against someone from South Korea. And you can see I have a pretty ideal start. I have my Goblin Hut, I have my Elixir Pump down, and then from here I've got a lot of options. Seeing as he just spent all that Elixir on the Fireball, I'm going to go ahead and drop my Royal Giant. Fireball right on top of that Musketeer right there, and I was hoping that that one Spear Goblin would take the Musketeer out, because all the Musketeer needs to die is a Fireball plus 1 Spear Goblin, but unfortunately, I think the Spear Goblin targeted something else, so instead I drop my cannon, I drop my arrows, and as soon as that Hog Rider latches onto the tower, he ended up dropping his free spell, so we had to play our Spear Goblins to counter and end up taking it out. So we took a little bit of damage, but notice on the bottom right that we still have our Elixir Pump going, and he spent much more Elixir than me, so we have 2 Elixir Pumps down. We're only down 3 Elixir right now, so this game is looking pretty solid as we go into the second half of the battle. Alright, so 2 pumps down, and really the order of the buildings for this deck is you want to have 2 buildings in the very center. The one that I just placed is the Goblin Hut. You can also put an Elixir Pump there if you really want to, and then you put a cannon right on top of it, sort of similar to what he just did. But as we go forward, we now have a massive Elixir lead. We're going to drop our Royal Giant. We went ahead and dropped our Barbarians. Unfortunately, he did have that Fireball this time, so he was able to take it out. But take a look at the little amount of Elixir that he has, and the Fireball is going to end up one-shotting that Musketeer because he didn't my Spear Goblins ended up actually hitting it, and it made it so it was one-shottable using that troop. So I drop a good game. This one is all but over. As soon as you take a tower with this deck, there's no way that you can come back unless you just royally screw it up. But I already have a second Elixir Pump down. He's going to drop his right next to his towers. He must be saving for overtime or something like that. I'm not sure why he would play an Elixir Pump right there. Another Spear Goblin Hut going down the right-hand side, and he plays a cannon on defense. I guess he was really worried about me going on an assault, but he actually played a really nice Fireball right there to take out my cannon and my Goblin Hut, but still just having such an Elixir lead on him with all of those Elixir Pumps that I had, as well as Fireballing that Musketeer to make sure those Barbarians live, mean that this game is pretty much a formality as we make our way to the last 20 seconds of the battle. Alright, so second Royal Giant has gone down. I was sort of just going crazy on his side of the map. Cannon's going to stop that Hog Rider. Fireball's really not going to do too much as we take out tower number 2, and a pretty simple 2-crown-0 victory. You guys might have noticed I took a lot of damage in the beginning, but I sort of sacrificed the health on my building for an Elixir advantage by getting that second Elixir Pump down, and because of that, I snowballed the game out of control, and there was really nothing that this guy could do. So 2-0 on this account, not too bad. This was one of my, again, 18 straight wins that I had while I was climbing on my way to the top. Let's go ahead and play Gaibo00 from the Italian Legends. Personally, I think he's one of the most skilled players at the top. He actually plays me pretty close usually, and he's only level 12. Of course, his cards are pretty close to max. I think some of them are max, like his commons, but you can see the Elixir Pump's only level 10. So I definitely have a lot of respect for this guy. Let's go ahead and start off with a Goblin Hut in the very center. He's going to play his Ice Wizard right there, and I don't have a Fireball, or else I would have Fireballed both the Ice Wizard as well as the Elixir Pump, so instead I sort of have an awkward play right here, and I was scared to drop my Elixir Collector because I knew the Royal Giant had to be coming. Okay, so Royal Giant's going to lock onto my tower. He ended up dropping a Zap spell instead of a Fireball onto my Barbarians right there, which was a little bit of a mistake, and now we can play our Elixir Pump pretty safely. He might have to respond to those Barbarians, which he will with his own Barbarians, and now we should have a pretty massive advantage going into the rest of the battle. We have an Elixir Pump down. His Elixir Pump's about to die, as well as we're still even on Elixir. I ended up dropping my Fireball just to make sure we took out those Barbarians. If I had my Spear Goblins, you can actually counter the barbarians with spear goblins if he plays them correctly, but instead he's going to play his spear goblin in the very center, or his elixir collector in the very center, and that's really not too big of a deal. I'm going to get a lot of value every single time that my spear goblin hits it just a single time right there. It's actually going to throw 2 spears before it dies on the left hand side, and then now that he has that princess right there, I've got to cycle back to my arrows to take that princess out. I've got to cycle to the cannon to take care of the royal giant. I don't get it down in time, so he actually is going to get a lot of value from this push. Do have to drop my barbarians at the last second, but this was actually pretty well played by him, and he ended up taking a decent amount of damage on the right hand side. Alright, so we've sort of got to refocus right here. We've got a goblin hut down, as well as we still have that elixir pump. We've got a few elixir lead right now, so we got to make sure we don't blow that by dropping another elixir pump to make sure that we keep that lead. And at this point, it's time to start stockpiling those goblin huts on the right hand side, and sending 2 spear goblins at once is super annoying to deal with, and that's something he's definitely going to have to drop his princess for. Now, of course, I'm going to arrow that as soon as possible. We're doing about 74 damage for every spear goblin that hits that tower, and over time, it completely chunks it out. I can fireball down that ice wizard, get some great value right there. He's, of course, going to drop his barbarians now that my fireball's down, but I'm just going to keep cruising. Cannon's going to go down to stop the royal giant. We've got the barbarians taking out his barbarians. He's, of course, going to fireball those yet again. Looks like the royal giant took out my spear goblins, or my goblin hut, so we actually hit the cannon, doing a pretty solid amount of damage throughout that entire encounter. And yeah, we've still got another goblin hut down. We've got 2 elixir pumps down, and you can see how I'm just slowly whittling him down using this deck. This deck is actually a defensive deck, even though it runs the royal giant inside of it. This deck is all about defense and then capitalizing on your opponent's mistakes, and you can see right here he knew I didn't have my arrows or my fireballs, so he ended up dropping his minion horde. Of course, the spear goblins were an okay counter, and we were able to make sure we didn't take too much damage. Finally, our royal giant's going to go down. I think this is our first royal giant we've played all game, and we're finally going on that counter push, seeing as I know he must be weak and really doesn't have the much to counter us with. Okay, so fireball is going to go down on those barbarians. We got 1 hit on the tower right there. Wish I got a little bit more, and of course his princess is a super effective counter to those spear goblins. Finally, we can play our spear goblins on the left as soon as the princess locks on to the elixir pump, and we're just getting ready for one last push down the right hand lane, and that should be enough to wrap us up the game. So arrowing that princess, the tower's down to 491 HP. We're actually going to drop our royal giant as soon as he drops his, and he tries to get something out to stop it, but unfortunately not enough time left for him to regain that elixir, and that's going to be a pretty solid 23-second left in overtime victory against Gaibo from the Italian Legends. Again, I think this is one of the more skilled players at the top, and some of his buildings aren't even maxed out, so I definitely have to give him that. Let's go ahead and go into our final battle of the day against Brightlight from In the Light, and he again is rocking a really common deck, which is probably the most common deck inside of the entire game. The Musketeer, the Hog Rider, and the Valkyrie, it is seen pretty much everywhere. He's going to drop a Hog Rider in the very beginning to testify the cannon. I actually do, but the Hog Rider is still going to get 1 hit off against my pump, which was really unfortunate. I didn't think it would do that. But at this point, he's going to set up for a push, and let's go ahead and get ready to do a push of our own by dropping the Royal Giant in the very back. I would have liked to drop my Goblin Hut, but I didn't have it right there, so I just had to make a decision and drop the Royal Giant. Of course, he was looking to make a little bit of a push on the left, but he didn't have anything to follow up the Musketeer with. He was a little bit scared to do anything else, so instead of doing that, he just lets the Musketeer walk over, and then finally he plays his Valkyrie, which is going to be his big push, or his big counter to my Barbarians down the right-hand side. Okay, so Royal Giant Spear Goblins right there, doing a good job. We're going to fireball out that Musketeer, seeing as our Spear Goblins had already whittled her down just a bit, and then now we're getting a pretty solid soak of damage on the right-hand side. We've already taken it down to about 2,000 HP, and with the lone Hog Rider going down the lane, that's not going to be able to do too much until he drops the free spell, which we are so close to killing that Hog Rider. It actually had 1 HP left, which was really unfortunate, or else we would have made a massive trade out of that defense right there. He played 8 elixir, and we only dropped a cannon, and if our tower just got 1 more hit off against that Hog Rider, we wouldn't have had to drop our Barbarians, so a little bit unfortunate. He still ended up getting a little bit of damage against our tower, but still, take a look at the right-hand side. He might not notice, but the Spear Goblins are just going crazy on that tower, bringing it down to 1,700 HP, and we've already gotten pretty close to our win condition, which is a Fireball and Arrow combo. If we just keep poking it down, we get it down to about 500, 600 HP. We can just Fireball them out fairly easily, and that's what we're going to be looking to do for the rest of the battle. Now, I was trying to get some good value on that Fireball right there by taking out the Elixir Pump Musketeer as well as hitting the tower. Unfortunately, things don't always go as planned, so as soon as he makes a push down the left, he's going to drop Freeze to stop my my spear goblins as well as my tower. Valkyrie is actually going to do a pretty excellent job right there and start getting some good damage down the left-hand side, but I didn't want to drop a counter. Instead, I'd rather go on offense, and he actually cycles back to the cannon just in time if you were looking at his elixir bar, which made it for a pretty unfortunate time down the right-hand lane. But still, we're getting some good damage on the tower. He ends up dropping a Hog Rider. He doesn't want to play defense. He's just going for the win, and our spear goblins should be plenty enough to take that Hog Rider out. And with our barbarians to follow up, the tower is down to 622 HP, and he doesn't have any direct damage in this deck except for the arrows. So a fireball and an arrow will win the game on the right-hand side. We have reached our win condition, so there goes the fireball right now, which will kill the musketeer. Arrows should be enough as well, seeing as he's going to drop a cannon to drop the spear goblins, and at this point he knows the game is over. So good game against Bright Light, and definitely a pretty contested battle. I still felt like I was in control for most of the battle. He did have that a couple of hog freezes that went his way, but still we didn't take too much damage on the left-hand tower on every push, except for that one Valkyrie, which was mega annoying. But still, a solid 1 crown to 0 victory, and again, I am #1 in the world at 4,099 trophies, winning 18 straight battles along the way. So if you guys haven't tried out this deck, I definitely recommend that you do. It's super good for me, it's super fun, and once you learn how to play it, it's a pretty fun one to play. It's not the easiest deck to play. I'd probably put it at a medium difficulty. I'd put certain decks at a lower difficulty and certain decks at a higher difficulty, like Giant Skeleton 3 Musketeers is at a high difficulty. I'd put this one at medium to like medium high, and then low decks would be like mortars and spamming bomb towers and stuff like that. But yeah, try it out. Let me know what you guys think, and that's going to do it for this video. Until next time, I will see you guys later. Peace out.